This is a live scene in Portsmouth, Virginia. There is an impromptu protest outside a Confederate monument that is in that town. Virginia is the home to more Confederate monuments than any state in the Union. Of course, they dot the landscape of America. There's even many U.S. Army bases and other bases named after them. There's something incredible happening with American public opinion in this moment. Just today, NASCAR, venerated institution for many in rural white America, an institution that has struggled with expanding and diversifying its base, announced it would ban Confederate flags from its events and property, saying in a statement, the presence of the Confederate flag at NASCAR events runs contrary to our commitment to providing a welcoming and inclusive environment for all fans, our competitors, and our industry. The display of the Confederate flag will be prohibited from all NASCAR events and properties. In the wake of the most significant street protests in at least a generation, perhaps longer, public opinion appears to be moving rapidly in the direction of the protesters. Just look at this graph from the New York Times Upshot. In the past 2 weeks, support for Black Lives Matter increased by nearly as much as it had over the previous 2 years. Here to talk about this, someone who wrote a book on this topic, has thought a lot about it. The Sum of Us is the book, What Racism Costs Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together, which is due out next year. She also did a TED Talk last year about how white people understand racism and what it means for them. Heather McGhee, co-chair of Color Change, an online racial justice organization. You know, Heather, there was so much tension and worry in the wake of the protests when they started from people, particularly, I think, like white liberals who are like, oh, God, it's going to help Donald Trump. Oh, no, you're going to alienate. No. And it is really, it's like a case study in street protest and public opinion. I myself am actually kind of shocked by the data. What do you see happening here?
I think we see a few things happening. One, I think we were primed for this moment by the coronavirus, by a lot of the American mythology being laid bare. One, the idea that we can sort of be relentlessly upwardly mobile and that white folks have, sort of their grasp on the American dream when the economy shut down and people realized they were 2 paychecks away from destitution and the government may not be there for them. There was a sense of vulnerability and a physical vulnerability. And then, as we saw, the coronavirus made people lean into their neighbors and show so much solidarity and interdependence. Once you tap into that source of vulnerability, interdependence, humanity, and an awareness of the inequality that the coronavirus has exposed, you're primed for something big. And then George Floyd was murdered on video, on top of the videos that we have and videos that we don't have of so many of the other acts of racism, Breonna Taylor, of Ahmaud Arbery, Christian the Birdwatcher in New York. And it was like lightning striking when you feel that electricity building up in a storm. And so that's why I think we have this incredible thing happening with public opinion. But it's also because of movements, because movements are powerful, because the movement for Black Lives has been working on this day in and day out, in big street protests and in small reading circles and in fights online and in calling people in and calling people out since Trayvon Martin was killed.
Yeah, we're watching, just so that people know, we were watching someone take a sledgehammer to a Confederate monument. This particular monument is sort of unnamed Confederate soldiers, many of which have been torn down. They were erected as explicit memorializations of white supremacy and a kind of victory lap over the equality that was pushed through in Reconstruction. And we were watching them come down as these sort of powerful moments of symbolism. The polling here, Heather, you've got the last few weeks. You've also got, just if you look back, 2011 poll on racism, how big a problem is racism for society? 21% of white people saying, it's a big problem. Now you got 60% of white respondents. There's something happening. I see people, caricature it, or they sort of use woke in these sort of like the way they use PC in these like sort of like condescending quotation marks. But there is something happening in the consciousness of white people in America about race.
100%. And we've never had any enduring, lasting change without this kind of multiracial coalition. It's so important that this consciousness change, because what am I talking about when I say consciousness? I mean our beliefs. What do we believe on a gut level about the different groups of people that make up this country? We've seen consciousness change on issues like LGBTQ equality and marriage equality. Consciousness changed and then policy changed.
Yeah.
We've seen, in contrast, policy change without consciousness change. And I call to mind Brown versus Board of Education,
great
where
point.
You had a conscious policy change that was resisted not 10 years later by the Supreme Court, and a backlash that was very much, I think, driven hand in hand with the rise of the new Jim Crow and mass incarceration, where the belief in the inherent sort of goodness and innocence of Black and brown children has not actually followed, and it didn't predate the court decision, and we have schools that are as segregated as they were before Brown. This consciousness change is going to see ripples all over the place. You're seeing with the party in Virginia right now, saying it's time for new America. And that's what they're saying.
That is an incredible and illuminating framework. I think, by the way, I'm watching a Black man take a sledgehammer to a monument to white supremacy erected on public land to essentially celebrate the subjugation of African Americans after a brief taste of equality and Reconstruction and a program for equality. In fact, many of the Confederate monuments, I don't know the particular history of this one, erected throughout the South, were erected in the wake of Brown v. Board as precisely this kind of backlash politics. In the 40 seconds we have left, do you fear the backlash politics? Because in the era of Donald Trump, I think people are scared of it and always looms large.
Yeah, of course there will be a backlash, but here's the question. Are we going to be strong enough to defeat it? And I think we are. I mean, I think you are seeing the longest, most sustained protests in American history. There will always be a backlash. They'll always have a lot of money. They'll always have a lot of the media in terms of the right-wing media. But this moral moment that we're being called to, I think, is stronger than any backlash.
Heather McGhee, one of my favorite people in the world to talk to, always. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you very much.